She was 8 months pregnant, holding her 11-month-old son in her arms, standing in the foyer of her $12 million mansion. And her husband had just invited his mistress inside. What happened next would last only 47 seconds. But those 47 seconds would destroy her vision, shatter her marriage, and expose a monster hiding behind a millionaire's smile. He stood at the bottom of the stairs, watching, not moving, not helping, just watching. While the woman he loved beat the woman he married, she took 11 blows to the face. 11. And she never let go of her baby, not once. But here's what her husband didn't know. The security cameras were recording everything. And his emails? The ones planning this attack for months? The police found every single one. This is the story of a woman who lost half her sight but finally saw the truth. A man who had everything and lost it all. And a betrayal so shocking, so calculated, so cruel that it will stay with you long after the last word. This is 47 seconds, and it begins right now. The wine glass shattered against the marble floor. The sound echoed through the $12 million estate like a gunshot. Crystal fragments scattered across white stone. Red wine spread like blood. But it wasn't the breaking that made Laurel freeze. It was the smile on her husband's face as he watched. Laurel Hartwell stood in the kitchen of her Connecticut mansion. She was 32 years old, 8 months pregnant, and holding their 11-month-old son Oliver against her hip. The doorbell had rung 3 minutes ago. She had expected the grocery delivery. She had not expected Veronica Tate. Laurel recognized her immediately. The woman from Preston's office Christmas party. The one with the red dress cut too low. The one who laughed too long at her husband's jokes. The one whose hand lingered on his arm. "Your husband invited me," Veronica said. She pushed past Laurel into the marble foyer. Her heels clicked against the stone. Each step deliberate, each step claiming territory. Laurel's arms tightened around Oliver. Her pregnant belly pressed against his small body. 2 children. She was protecting 2 children. "Excuse me," Laurel's voice came out sharper than intended. "You can't just walk into my home." Veronica turned. She was 29 years old, blonde hair perfectly styled, makeup flawless. She looked like she belonged in this house. She looked like she already owned it. "Preston," Veronica called up the stairs. "She's being difficult." Laurel's blood ran cold. Preston appeared at the top of the curved staircase. He was wearing his weekend cashmere sweater, the gray one Laurel had bought him for his 38th birthday. His face showed no surprise, no concern, no emotion at all. "Laurel," he said, "we need to talk." His voice was calm, business meeting calm, the same tone he used when firing employees. "Preston, what is she doing here?" He descended the stairs slowly, 1 step at a time. His hand trailed along the mahogany railing, the railing Laurel had chosen when they renovated 3 years ago. "Veronica and I have been together for 14 months, Preston said. The words hit Laurel's chest like stones thrown hard. 14 months. She did the math instantly. 14 months ago, she was pregnant with Oliver. She was picking out nursery colors. She was dreaming about their family. 14 months meant he was with this woman while Laurel gave birth, while she nursed their son through sleepless nights, while she recovered from the C-section, while she got pregnant again. He was with Veronica the entire time. "This marriage isn't working," Preston continued. He reached the bottom of the stairs. "You must have noticed." Laurel couldn't speak. Her throat had closed. Oliver squirmed against her hip, sensing his mother's distress. Veronica circled her like a predator. Slowly, her perfume was expensive, cloying. It filled Laurel's nose and made her stomach turn. "He promised you'd be gone by now," Veronica said. "He promised me this house." The words broke through Laurel's shock. This house, her house, the house where she had planted roses in the garden, the house where Oliver took his first steps, the house where she had imagined raising her daughter. "I'm not leaving my home." Laurel's voice came out steady. It surprised her. Preston sighed. The exact sigh he made when business deals fell through, like she was an inconvenience, a problem to be managed. "Laurel, don't make this difficult." "Difficult?" Her laugh sounded foreign, hollow. "You brought your mistress into our home. I'm holding our son. I'm carrying our daughter. And you're telling me not to make this difficult?" Veronica's eyes flashed. Something dark moved behind them. Your daughter? She spat the words. Preston told me he's getting a paternity test. He doesn't believe that baby is his. The accusation was designed to wound. It succeeded. Laurel felt the blow in her chest, in her belly, in the place where her daughter kicked and rolled. But she didn't move, didn't cry, didn't break. She looked at her husband, the man she had married 5 years ago, the man who had cried when Oliver was born, the man who had rubbed her swollen feet just last week. She looked at him and saw a stranger. Get out, Laurel said. Her voice was quiet, controlled. Get out of my house, both of you. Preston's jaw tightened. Laurel, be reasonable. I said get out. Veronica moved fast. Later, Laurel would remember the blur of motion, the flash of blonde hair, the click of heels on marble. The first blow caught her across the face while she was still holding Oliver. Laurel's head snapped to the side. Pain exploded through her cheekbone. Her vision went white. But she didn't drop her son. Her arms locked around him automatically, instinctively, the way mothers have protected children since the beginning of time. The second blow came, then the third. Laurel went down on the third hit. Her knees cracked against the marble floor. The impact sent shockwaves through her pregnant body. But she didn't let go of Oliver. She curled around him instead, made her body into a shell. Her back, her shoulders, her head. Every part of her became armor for her son. The blows kept coming, fists against her skull, rings cutting her scalp, something hard and sharp. Later she would learn it was the crystal vase from the entry table. 11 blows in 47 seconds. She counted each one. And through it all, through the pain and the blood and the terror, Laurel was aware of one thing. Preston stood at the foot of the stairs. He watched. He did not move. He did not help. He did not call for help. He just watched. Oliver screamed against her chest. His small body shook with fear. His cries mixed with her blood, with her tears, with the sound of her breaking. Then another voice, high and sharp. I'm calling 911. I'm calling right now. Caroline Foster, the neighbor, walking her dog past the open front door. The blows stopped. Laurel heard breathing. Ragged, fast, Veronica's breathing. Then Preston's voice. Still calm, still business meeting calm. We need to leave. Now. Footsteps, 2 sets, moving past her crumpled body, moving past her screaming son, moving toward the door. Preston, Laurel's voice was barely a whisper. Blood ran into her eyes. Preston, help me. He didn't answer. She heard the Mercedes start in the driveway, heard the tires crunch on gravel, heard the car disappear down the long road, then silence. Just her breathing. Oliver's crying, the distant sound of Caroline's voice on the phone. Laurel pressed her face against the cold marble. She could feel her daughter moving inside her arm. Still alive. Both children still alive. She had protected them. That was her last thought before the darkness took her. The beeping woke her first, steady and mechanical, a heart monitor somewhere nearby. Then the smell, antiseptic and clean, hospital smell. Laurel tried to open her eyes. She couldn't. Something covered them. Bandages, thick and tight. The world was completely dark. Panic rose in her chest. She reached up to touch her face. Easy, Mrs. Hartwell. A woman's voice, calm and professional. You're safe. You're at Mercy General Hospital. My baby. Laurel's voice was a ragged whisper. Her throat felt like sandpaper. My babies. Both of your children are fine. The voice moved closer. Your son is with your brother. The baby you're carrying has a strong heartbeat. We've been monitoring her. Relief flooded through Laurel's body. She felt tears running beneath the bandages. I'm Dr. Helen Marsh, the voice continued. I'm an ophthalmologist, a specialist in eyes. Laurel's relief turned cold. My eyes, she said. I can't see anything. A long pause, the kind of pause that holds bad news. The trauma to your face was severe, Dr. Marsh said. There's significant damage to both corneas. Your left orbital bone is fractured. The swelling is substantial. What does that mean? When we need to do more tests, more imaging. But Mrs. Hartwell, another pause. We don't know if your sight will return. The words didn't make sense at first. Laurel repeated them in her mind. We don't know if your sight will return. Blind. She might be blind. The woman who attacked you used multiple weapons, Dr. Marsh continued. Her fists, her rings, and what we believe was a crystal vase. The impacts to your face were... She stopped, started again. I've been doing this for 23 years. I've never seen injuries like yours in someone who survived. Survived. Laurel held on to that word. She had survived. My husband, she said. Where is my husband? Another pause. Different this time. Waited. Your husband was arrested 4 hours ago. The police are still looking for the woman who attacked you. Arrested. Preston was arrested. I don't understand. Laurel tried to sit up. Pain shot through her skull. She fell back against the pillow. Mrs. Hartwell, you need to rest. Your brother is here. He can explain everything. Footsteps, a door opening and closing, then different footsteps, heavier, familiar. Laurel, Garrett's voice broke on her name. Her older brother, the one who had raised her after their parents died, the one who had walked her down the aisle at her wedding, the one who had warned her about Preston. She had not listened. Garrett, she reached out blindly. His hand found hers, rough and calloused, working hands. Oliver, where is Oliver? He's safe. He's at my house with my neighbor watching him. He's not hurt, Laurel, not a scratch on him. The tears came harder. She had protected him. 47 seconds of hell, and she had protected him. The police found the security footage, Garrett said. His voice was tight, controlled, the way it got when he was trying not to explode. From the cameras in the house, Preston forgot about them. Security footage? Everything was recorded, Laurel, everything. She processed this. The attack, Preston watching, Preston leaving with Veronica, all of it captured on camera. There's more, Garrett said. She could hear it in his voice, the weight of something terrible. Tell me. The police found emails on Preston's computer between him and the woman who attacked you, Veronica Tate. They were planning this, Laurel, for months, discussing how to get you to leave. Different scenarios, a fake robbery, a car accident, a fall down the stairs. Laurel's blood turned to ice. 3 weeks ago, Preston wrote that if you wouldn't leave on your own, they would have to escalate. Escalate, the word hung in the darkness. He planned this, Laurel whispered. He wanted her to hurt me. The DA is charging him as an accessory to attempted murder. Attempted murder. Her husband, the father of her children. There's something else. Garrett's hand tightened on hers. The emails mention a life insurance policy. Preston took out a $10 million policy on you. 8 months ago. 8 months. She was pregnant with their daughter 8 months ago. Barely showing. Just starting to feel kicks. Preston took out a life insurance policy. $10 million. On her life. He wanted me dead, Laurel said. The words came out flat. Empty. Stating a fact. The DA thinks so. The insurance policy, the planning, the way he stood there and watched. Garrett's voice cracked. He might have wanted you dead, Laurel, so he could have everything. The house, the money, and whatever life he was building with that woman. Laurel lay in the darkness. The machines beeped around her. Her daughter kicked inside her. Her face throbbed with pain. Her husband had tried to have her killed, the man who had held her hand at their wedding. The man who had promised to love and protect her. The man who had cried when Oliver was born. He had stood at the bottom of the stairs and watched another woman try to kill her, and then he drove away. She remembered his face in those final moments, the smile when the wine glass shattered, the calm voice telling her not to make this difficult. He had been calm because he knew what was coming. He had planned it. He had invited Veronica over. He had orchestrated the confrontation. The only thing he hadn't planned for was Laurel's response. They expected her to fight back, to scream and hit and give them justification, self-defense, they would have claimed. The crazy pregnant wife attacked first. But Laurel hadn't fought back. She had curled around her baby instead. She had taken every blow. She had given them nothing, and the security cameras had captured everything. He watched. Laurel's voice was hollow. He just stood there and watched. The validation of that truth settled into her bones. Her husband was a monster, and she had married him, shared his bed, carried his children. She had loved him. That was the worst part. Through all of it, through all the signs she had ignored, she had loved him, and he had tried to have her killed. The police want to take your statement, Garrett said gently. When you're ready, but not now. You need to rest. You need to heal. My eyes, Laurel said. The doctor doesn't know if I'll see again. Garrett was silent for a long moment. One step at a time, he finally said. First you survive, then you heal, then you fight. Fight? He's not going to get away with this, Laurel. I won't let him. The cameras caught everything. The emails prove he planned it. The insurance policy shows motive. Garrett's voice hardened. Preston Hartwell is going to pay for what he did to you. I promise you that. Laurel closed her eyes behind the bandages. Not that it mattered. Everything was dark either way. She thought about fighting, about trials and testimony, and facing Preston across a courtroom. She thought about raising 2 children alone, possibly blind, definitely broken. She thought about the life she had imagined, the family she had dreamed of, the future that had shattered on a marble floor. All of it gone, and in its place only darkness. She had survived. But survival was just the beginning. 3 days passed in darkness. Laurel drifted in and out of consciousness. The pain medication made everything fuzzy. Dreams and memories blurred together. She dreamed of her wedding day, the white dress, the string quartet, Preston's face as she walked toward him. He had looked at her like she was everything. Now she knew what that look really meant. She was everything he needed. Money, status, a legitimate family. She was a means to an end. She woke to Garrett's voice. The police report came in, he said. Do you want me to read it? Yes, she needed to know every detail, every second of those 47 seconds that had destroyed her life. Garrett took a breath. She heard the paper rustling. The attack lasted 47 seconds. The suspect, Veronica Tate, struck the victim 11 times. Weapons used included closed fists, rings worn on both hands, and a crystal vase valued at approximately $1,200. $1,200. Laurel almost laughed. She had picked out that vase herself, a wedding gift from Preston's aunt. The victim sustained multiple facial fractures, a fractured left orbital bone, severe corneal damage to both eyes, multiple lacerations requiring 63 stitches. 63 stitches. Laurel raised her hand to her face. She could feel the bandages, thick, heavy, covering her eyes and most of her forehead. The victim's 11-month-old son was present during the attack. The victim was observed curling her body around the child, absorbing all blows with her back, shoulders, and head. The child sustained no injuries. No injuries. Oliver was not hurt. Laurel had done that. Through all of it, she had protected her son. The suspect's accomplice, Preston Hartwell, age 38, was observed on security footage standing at the base of the interior staircase throughout the attack. He did not intervene. He did not call for emergency services. He did not render aid to the victim. Garrett's voice grew tighter with each sentence. Following the attack, the suspect and accomplice were observed leaving the residence together in a vehicle registered to Preston Hartwell. They did not check on the victim or the child. They did not contact emergency services. They left. They just left. Laurel lying on the floor in her own blood, Oliver screaming, and they got in the car and drove away. Both suspects were apprehended 3 hours later at a hotel in New Haven. The suspect, Veronica Tate, had visible blood on her clothing and hands. She claimed the blood was her own. DNA testing has confirmed it belonged to the victim. Laurel's blood on Veronica's hands, on her clothes. Preston Hartwell has been charged with conspiracy to commit aggravated assault, accessory to attempted murder, and insurance fraud. Veronica Tate has been charged with aggravated assault, attempted murder, and assault of a pregnant woman. Garrett stopped reading. The room was silent except for the beeping monitors. There's more, Garrett said, about the emails. Tell me. The police found correspondence dating back 7 months. Preston and Veronica discussing how to end your marriage. At first, they planned for Preston to simply file for divorce. Claim you were mentally unstable. Try to get full custody of Oliver. Mentally unstable. Laurel remembered the arguments. The times Preston had told her she was overreacting, imagining things, being paranoid, gaslighting. He had been gaslighting her for months. But then you got pregnant again, Garrett continued. And that changed things. Another child meant more custody complications, more child support, more ties to you. He didn't want her, Laurel whispered. Our daughter, he didn't want her. The emails suggest he was angry about the pregnancy. He thought you had planned it deliberately. Laurel almost laughed again. She hadn't planned it, neither had Preston, but he was always careful with protection. Always controlled about family planning, except for one night, 8 months ago, his birthday, too much champagne, a rare moment of spontaneity. That one night had created their daughter, and apparently it had sealed Laurel's fate. 3 weeks before the attack, Garrett said, Preston wrote to Veronica that they needed to escalate, that waiting for a divorce wasn't working, that you needed to be removed from the equation. Removed from the equation, like she was a business problem, an obstacle to be eliminated. He mentioned the life insurance policy, said it would solve their financial concerns, that once you were gone, everything would be simpler. Once you were gone, Laurel understood now. The attack wasn't just about getting her to leave. It was about getting her killed. Veronica was supposed to beat her to death, or at least beat her badly enough that she would lose the baby, that she would die from complications. The only thing that had saved her was Caroline Foster, the neighbor walking her dog, hearing the commotion, calling 911. If Caroline hadn't been there, Veronica wouldn't have stopped. Laurel would be dead. There's one more thing, Garrett said. His voice changed, heavier. What? Veronica's mother contacted the DA's office. She wants to give a statement. She has information about Preston. What kind of information? Garrett paused. Laurel, you're not Preston's first wife. You're his fourth. The words didn't make sense. What? Preston has been married 3 times before. Each marriage ended after he started an affair. Each wife was paid off. Each wife signed a non-disclosure agreement. Fourth wife. Laurel was his fourth wife. She had known he was married once before, a brief marriage in his 20s. Ended amicably, he said. They grew apart, but 3 times, 3 other women? None of the previous wives knew about the others, Garrett continued. Preston kept them all separate, used his family's lawyers to handle the divorces, sealed the records, buried the truth. Laurel lay in the darkness and felt her memories reshaping. Everything she thought she knew about her husband was a lie. She remembered their first date, the rooftop restaurant with string lights, Preston ordering champagne before she could say she preferred wine. He had made all the decisions from the very beginning. She just hadn't noticed. She remembered their wedding, her mother crying, Preston's mother, Patricia, not crying. Patricia had worn white to her son's 4th wedding, knowing he would destroy another woman. She remembered the honeymoon in Bali, Preston on his phone constantly. Business calls, he said, important deals. Now she wondered who he was really talking to. She remembered Oliver's birth, Preston holding their son for exactly 4 minutes, then handing him to the nurse, taking a phone call. She had made excuses for him. He was busy. He was stressed. He loved them in his own way. She had made so many excuses. I knew, Laurel whispered to the darkness. Somewhere I knew. The signs were all there. You couldn't have known this, Garrett said firmly. He fooled everyone. No. Laurel shook her head slowly. The movement sent pain cascading through her skull. I saw the signs. I just didn't want to see them. The night she told him she was pregnant again. His face before he rearranged it into happiness. For 1 second, she had seen disappointment, anger, something dark. She had told herself she imagined it. She hadn't imagined it. How many other women did he hurt? Laurel asked. The other wives, were any of them? We don't know yet. The DA is trying to contact them. 2 have refused to talk, too afraid, too traumatized. And the third? She's agreed to speak. Her name is Margot Sinclair Whitfield. She was Preston's 2nd wife. She said she's been waiting 10 years for someone to finally hold him accountable. 10 years. Another woman had been waiting 10 years for justice. Laurel understood something then, something important. This wasn't just about her. This wasn't just about what Preston had done to her. This was about every woman he had ever hurt, every wife he had discarded, every life he had destroyed, and she was going to stop him. "I'm going to testify," Laurel said. "Whatever it takes, however long it takes, I'm going to make sure he never does this to anyone else." "Laurel, you need to focus on healing first." "No," her voice was stronger now. "I need to focus on justice for me, for our daughter, for every woman who came before me." She reached out and found Garrett's hand. "Help me, Garrett. Help me destroy him." His hand tightened around hers. "That's exactly what I plan to do." Denise arrived on day 4. Laurel heard her before she saw her. Not that she could see anything, but the sound of her best friend's voice cut through the hospital haze like a blade. "Where is she? I need to see her now." Then footsteps, running, and Denise was there, grabbing Laurel's hand, her breath coming in gasps. "Oh my God, Laurel, oh my God. You didn't have to fly all the way from Seattle." "Shut up. Of course I did." Denise sat on the edge of the bed. Laurel could smell her perfume, the same perfume she had worn since college. Some things never changed. "I'm going to kill him," Denise said. Her voice shook with rage. "I'm going to actually kill him." "Get in line." The joke surprised both of them. Laurel heard Denise's breath catch, then a strange sound. Half laugh, half sob. "There you are," Denise said. "There's my girl. I was worried you were gone." "I'm still here. Mostly." "Your eyes?" "They don't know yet. Maybe permanent damage. Maybe not. We'll see." Laurel paused. "Or maybe we won't see. Literally." Denise squeezed her hand harder. "That's not funny." "I know, but if I don't laugh, I'm going to brain to scream. And I'm trying not to scare the nurses." They sat in silence for a moment. The monitors beeped steadily. Somewhere down the hall, a phone rang. "I never liked him," Denise finally said. "You know that." "You never said anything." "Would you have listened?" Laurel thought about this, really thought about it. "No," she admitted, "I wouldn't have. That's why I didn't say anything. You had to see it yourself." "See what?" "The way he controlled everything. The way he made decisions without asking you. The way he always had to be right." Denise's voice softened. "The way you got smaller every year, you were married to him." Smaller. The word hit Laurel hard. She remembered the woman she had been before Preston. Confident, independent, the youngest regional manager at her company. Dreams of starting her own business someday. Then she met Preston, and slowly, gradually, she had given up pieces of herself. She quit her job because he wanted her to. She stopped seeing friends because he was jealous. She moved into his house, his world, his life. She had become a supporting character in her own story. "I didn't see it," Laurel whispered. "Or I saw it, and I told myself it was normal." It's what abusers do. They chip away at you so slowly you don't notice until there's nothing left. "He never hit me. Before this, I mean. He never..." Abuse isn't just physical, Laurel. The way he talked to you, the way he made you doubt yourself, the way he isolated you from everyone who cared about you. Denise paused. "I tried calling you 6 months ago. Do you remember?" Laurel searched her memory, foggy with medication. "You didn't answer. When I tried again, Preston told me you were too busy, that you'd call me back. You never did." "I don't remember that." "He probably never told you I called." Laurel felt something shift inside her, another piece of the puzzle falling into place. "He kept me away from everyone," she said slowly. "My friends, my brother, anyone who might have seen what he was doing." Classic isolation technique. Make the victim dependent on the abuser. Remove all other support systems. "When did you become an expert on domestic abuse?" "When my best friend married a monster and I couldn't figure out how to save her." The words hung in the air, heavy with guilt, heavy with love. "I'm sorry," Laurel said. "I should have listened to you." "Don't apologize. Just survive. Just get through this." "And then?" "Then we make him pay. Every cent, every year of his freedom, everything he has." Denise's voice was fierce now, protective. The same voice she had used in college when someone hurt Laurel's feelings. The same voice that said, "I will fight for you no matter what." "The DA says the case is strong," Laurel said. "The security footage, the emails, the life insurance policy. It's more than strong, it's airtight." But Preston has money. His family has money. They'll hire the best lawyers. Let them. Denise squeezed her hand again. Let them hire every lawyer in the country. The video shows him standing there while you got beaten nearly to death. No lawyer can explain that away. Laurel wanted to believe her. She wanted to believe that justice was possible, that Preston would face consequences for what he had done. But she knew how the world worked. Rich men escape punishment all the time. Money bought freedom. Money bought silence. Money bought justice. His mother came to see me yesterday, Garrett said from the doorway. Laurel turned toward his voice. She hadn't heard him come in. Patricia? She wanted to offer you $12 million to drop the charges, sign a non-disclosure agreement, go away quietly. $12 million, more money than Laurel had ever imagined having. What did you tell her? I told her to get out before I called security. Garrett's voice was tight with anger. I told her that her son was going to prison no matter how much money she threw at the problem. She'll try again, Denise said. People like that always try again. Let her try. Laurel's voice surprised her with its strength. I don't want his money. I want him in prison. I want him to lose everything he has. Then that's what we'll get, Garrett said. I met with a lawyer today, Marcus Webb. He's a former prosecutor, spent 15 years putting men like Preston behind bars. Why would a prosecutor help me? He knows Preston's family, worked with his father decades ago. He's watched the Hartwells buy their way out of trouble since Preston was a teenager. What kind of trouble? Garrett hesitated. Tell me. A drunk driving accident when Preston was 16, killed his girlfriend. The records were sealed. The family paid off the other family. Laurel felt sick. He killed someone when he was 16. Technically, it was ruled an accident, but there were questions. Witnesses who said Preston was driving too fast, who said he was showing off. And they just covered it up. That's what money does. That's what the Hartwells have always done. Garrett moved closer. She felt him sit in the chair beside her bed. But not this time. This time there's video evidence. This time there's a paper trail a mile long. This time Preston Hartwell is going to face justice. Laurel lay in the darkness and thought about the 16-year-old who had killed his girlfriend, who had watched her die, who had walked away without consequences. 22 years later, he had watched another woman nearly die. Same pattern, same coldness, same certainty that he would escape punishment. But this time was different. This time, he had chosen the wrong victim. I want to meet him, Laurel said. This lawyer, Marcus Webb. I already set up a meeting tomorrow afternoon. Good. Laurel felt something solidify inside her, purpose, direction, something to fight for beyond just survival. We're going to destroy him, she said quietly. Every lie he told, every woman he hurt, every crime he buried, we're going to bring it all into the light. We are, Denise agreed. We are, Garrett confirmed. And in the darkness, Laurel began to see something she hadn't seen since the attack. A future. 1 week after the attack, Dr. Marsh removed Laurel's bandages. The room was quiet. Garrett and Denise waited in the hallway, just Laurel and the doctor, alone with whatever came next. I need you to keep your eyes closed until I tell you to open them, DeMarsh said. The light might be overwhelming at first. Laurel felt the bandages unwinding, layer by layer. The pressure eased on her face. We were able to repair some of the corneal damage in your right eye, Dr. Marsh continued. The surgery went as well as we could have hoped. And my left eye, he said, a pause. And the damage to your left eye was too severe. I'm sorry, Mrs. Hartwell. The vision in that eye will not return. Laurel absorbed this, half blind. She would be half blind for the rest of her life. Can I open my eyes now? Yes, slowly. The room is dimmed. Laurel opened her eyes. At first, everything was blurry. Shapes without definition, colors bleeding into each other. Then slowly, her right eye began to focus. She could see Dr. Marsh standing beside her, a blur of gray hair and white coat. She could see the hospital room. Blurred but there, the window, the monitors, the chair where Garrett had sat for hours. Her left eye showed nothing, just darkness, a permanent shadow. What do you see? Dr. Marsh asked. Shapes, colors. It's blurry, but I can see something. That's excellent news. With time and therapy, your right eye should improve significantly. You may need glasses for fine detail work, but you should be able to function relatively normally. Normally, Laurel almost laughed at the word. Nothing would ever be normal again. What about driving, she asked. Working? Taking care of my children? All of those things are possible. Many people live full lives with vision in only one eye. You'll adapt. Humans are remarkably adaptable. Laurel looked around the room again, turned her head to compensate for the lost vision on her left side. She would learn to turn her head, to check her blind side, to navigate a world that was now half shadow. Can I see my son? She asked. I'll send him in. A few minutes later, the door opened. Small footsteps. Then Garrett's voice. Oliver, look, Mommy's awake. Laurel turned toward the sound, and there he was, blurry, imperfect. But there, her son, toddling toward her with his arms outstretched. His face round and uncertain. She dropped to her knees on the hospital floor. Oliver, baby, come here. He ran to her. She caught him in her arms, pressed her face against his hair, breathed in the smell of him. She could see him, not perfectly, not clearly, but she could see him. The tears came then, relief and grief and rage all mixed together. She held her son and cried on the hospital floor. Cried for what she had lost. Cried for what she had kept. Cried for the long road ahead. Later that afternoon, Marcus Webb came for their meeting. He was older than Laurel had expected, 52 years old, gray at the temples, dressed in a simple navy suit. His eyes were sharp, intelligent, the eyes of a man who had seen terrible things and refused to look away. Mrs. Hartwell, he said, thank you for meeting with me. Thank you for taking my case. He sat in the chair across from her bed. His movements were economical, precise. I've reviewed all the evidence, the security footage, the emails, the financial records. He paused. I've also spoken with the DA's office about the life insurance policy. What did they say? Preston took out that policy 8 months ago, shortly after you announced your pregnancy. The policy names him as the sole beneficiary. He took it out because of the baby. That's what the evidence suggests. A second child meant more complications if he wanted to leave the marriage. More child support, more custody issues. Marcus leaned forward. But if you died, everything would be simpler. He'd have the insurance money. He'd have primary custody of Oliver as the surviving parent. And he could marry Veronica without any of the messiness of divorce. Laurel felt the anger rising again, cold and sharp. He planned to kill me. The DA is pursuing that theory. The emails don't explicitly state it, but the circumstantial evidence is strong. What about Veronica? What does she say? She's claiming Preston manipulated her, that she was emotionally dependent on him, that she didn't know the attack would go so far. Do you believe that? I believe Veronica Tate is a violent woman who nearly beat you to death while you held your infant son. Marcus's voice was flat, certain. I also believe she's terrified of spending the rest of her life in prison. If we offer her a deal to testify against Preston, she might take it. You want to let her off easy? I want to make sure Preston Hartwell never hurts anyone again. If that means giving Veronica a reduced sentence in exchange for testimony, I'll make that trade. Laurel considered this. The woman who had destroyed her vision, who had tried to kill her, getting a lighter sentence. But Marcus was right. Preston was the real monster. He had planned this. He had invited Veronica over. He had stood and watched. Veronica was just the weapon. Preston was the one who aimed her. Do it, Laurel said. Whatever it takes to put him away. Do it. Marcus nodded. There's something else you should know. I've made contact with Preston's second ex-wife, Margot Sinclair Whitfield. Garrett mentioned her. She's willing to testify. Her NDA has a clause that becomes void if Preston is charged with a violent crime. She's been waiting years for this chance. What will she say? That Preston gaslit her throughout their marriage, made her believe she was mentally ill, had their couple's therapist on his payroll, feeding him information and validating Preston's claims about her instability. Marcus paused. She left that marriage convinced she was crazy. It took her 3 years to understand what had really happened. Laurel felt sick. Preston had done the same thing to her. The subtle comments, the questioning of her memory, the way he made her doubt her own perceptions. How many women has he done this to? She asked. We know of 4 wives. We're still investigating his relationships before his first marriage. Marcus met her eyes. Men like Preston don't start this behavior suddenly. There's usually a pattern going back years, decades. The girlfriend who died when he was 16. You know about that. Garrett told me. Marcus nodded slowly. I was a young assistant DA when that happened. I saw the evidence. The witnesses. The way his family made it all disappear. His voice hardened. I've been watching Preston Hartwell destroy people his entire life. His money has always protected him. His family has always cleaned up his messes. But not this time. Not this time. Marcus stood up. This time, I'm going to make sure he pays for everything he's done. To you, to his ex-wives, to that girl who died 22 years ago. He held out his hand. Are you with me, Mrs. Hartwell? Laurel took his hand. His grip was firm, certain. I'm with you. Then let's get started. Laurel was discharged from the hospital 2 weeks after the attack. She couldn't return to the estate. It was still a crime scene. The marble floors still stained with her blood. Even if she could return, she didn't want to. That house belonged to a different woman. A woman who believed in her husband. A woman who didn't know she was married to a monster. Garrett took her to his home instead. A modest 3-bedroom in a neighborhood without gates. No security cameras. No marble floors. Just a simple house with a small backyard and a fence that needed painting. It was the most beautiful place Laurel had ever seen. Oliver ran to her the moment she walked through the door, his small arms wrapped around her legs, his face pressed against her knee. Mama, he said, Mama home. Laurel knelt down slowly. Her body still ached. Her face still throbbed, but she wrapped her arms around her son and held him. Mama's home, she whispered. Mama's not going anywhere. The first night was hard. Laurel lay in Garrett's guest room, her hand on her belly, feeling her daughter kick. The unfamiliar sounds of the house kept her awake. The creak of the floors, the hum of the refrigerator. Every noise sounded like footsteps. Every shadow looked like a threat. She didn't sleep until dawn. The second night was harder. She woke screaming from a nightmare. Veronica's face, Preston's smile, the feeling of blows raining down. Garrett burst through the door, ready to fight someone who wasn't there. It's okay, Laurel gasped. Just a dream. Just a dream. But it wasn't just a dream. It was a memory, and memories didn't fade easily. On the third night, she gave up on sleep entirely. 3 a.m. Laurel sat in Garrett's backyard. The neighborhood was quiet. The stars blurred into streaks of light through her damaged right eye. The baby moved inside her. A flutter, then a kick. I don't know if I can do this, Laurel whispered to the night. I don't know if I'm strong enough. She had lost so much, her vision, her marriage, her home, her sense of safety. She had 2 children to raise, one already born, one on the way. She had no income, no clear path forward. Preston's lawyers were already filing motions, claiming she provoked the attack, claiming Veronica acted in self-defense, claiming the emails were taken out of context. They would drag her through the mud, expose every mistake she had ever made, try to make her look crazy, unstable, unreliable. The same thing Preston had done to his other wives. For a long moment, Laurel considered giving up, taking the money, signing the NDA, disappearing somewhere with her children, letting him win. The thought was tempting, so tempting. Then Oliver cried from inside the house. That small sound, that insistent call for his mother. Laurel stood up. Her body protested. Her face ached. But she went inside anyway. She went to her son. She found him standing in his crib, tears streaming down his face. A nightmare of his own, maybe. Or just the confusion of being in a strange place. She picked him up, held him against her chest. It's okay, she murmured. Mama's here. Mama's always going to be here. And in that moment, something shifted inside her. She wasn't just surviving for herself anymore. She was surviving for him, for her daughter. For every woman Preston had hurt, giving up wasn't an option. Running away wasn't an option. The only option was forward, through the pain, through the fear, through whatever came next. We're going to be okay, she told Oliver. I promise. We're going to be okay. She didn't know if it was true, but she said it anyway. And somehow in the darkness, it started to feel possible. The next morning, Laurel called Marcus Webb. I want to see the security footage, she said. Mrs. Hartwell, I don't think that's a good idea. I need to see it. I need to see exactly what he did. Marcus was silent for a long moment. All right, I'll have it ready this afternoon. Garrett drove her to Marcus's office, a simple building downtown. No fancy lobby, no pretentious artwork, just a conference room with a television screen and the worst 47 seconds of her life. Are you sure about this? Marcus asked. Play it. The screen flickered to life. She watched herself open the front door, watched Veronica push past her, watched Preston descend the stairs with that calm, controlled expression. She watched herself refuse to leave. Then she watched Veronica attack. Even knowing what was coming, Laurel flinched. The first blow, the second, the third. On screen, she went down, curled around Oliver, absorbed blow after blow after blow, and there was Preston, standing at the bottom of the stairs, his hands in his pockets, his face expressionless. 47 seconds. He watched for 47 seconds. Then he walked to Veronica, took her arm, let her out. He never looked back, never checked on his wife, never reached for his son. He just left. The footage ended. Laurel sat in silence. Her hands were shaking. Tears ran down her face. But underneath the grief, she felt something else. Rage. Pure, burning rage. I want copies of everything, she said. Her voice was steady despite the tears. Every email, every financial record, every piece of evidence. Of course. And I want to talk to the other wives. All of them. Every woman Preston has ever hurt. That might not be possible. 2 of them have refused to cooperate. Then convince them. Laurel turned to face Marcus. Tell them what he did to me. Show them the footage. Make them understand that if we don't stop him now, there will be more victims. Marcus studied her for a long moment. You've changed, he said finally. I've woken up. She stood up. Her legs were steady. Her vision was clear, at least on the right side. Preston thought he could destroy me. He thought he could beat me down and make me disappear like all the others. She straightened her spine. He was wrong. Patricia Hartwell's second visit came 3 weeks after the first. This time, she came to Marcus Webb's office. This time, she wasn't there to offer money. She was there to see the truth. I need to review all the evidence, Patricia said. Her voice was clipped, professional, but something beneath it was cracking. Marcus looked at Laurel. This was her decision. Laurel studied her mother-in-law, the woman who had worn white to her son's wedding, the woman who had never once showed warmth or approval, the woman who had offered $12 million to make Laurel disappear. Show it, Borisha, Laurel said. They started with the emails. Patricia read in silence. Her face grew paler with each page. Her hands began to tremble. She read about the plans to make Laurel leave, the discussion of various accidents, the celebration when the life insurance policy was approved. She read her son's words describing his wife as an obstacle to be removed. When she finished the emails, Marcus played the security footage. Patricia watched her son stand motionless while Veronica beat Laurel. She watched him take his mistress's hand and walk away without looking back. She watched his complete indifference to his wife's suffering. When the footage ended, Patricia sat very still. This is the 4th time, Laurel said quietly. I'm his 4th wife. There are 3 other women he did this to. Different methods, same result. Patricia's composure finally cracked. I didn't know, she whispered. Her voice shook. Gerald and I knew he had affairs. We thought they were just affairs. We didn't know he tried to have me killed. Laurel kept her voice even. In front of your grandchild. Patricia looked at her with something Laurel had never seen before. Humanity. I can't testify against my son, Patricia said. I can't. I know. But I won't help him either. Patricia stood, gathered her purse with shaking hands. The family attorneys will no longer represent him. The family funds will no longer pay for his defense. He's on his own. She walked to the door, stopped. I'm sorry, Laurel. Her voice was barely audible. For what it's worth, I'm sorry for all of it. Then she was gone. Marcus let out a long breath. That was unexpected. She's his mother. She loves him. Laurel paused, but she finally saw him for what he is. Without family money, Preston's defense just got significantly weaker. He'll have to use a public defender or hire someone much less expensive. Good. 2 days later, Veronica took a plea deal. Laurel watched through the courtroom video feed. Veronica, in an orange jumpsuit, her lawyer beside her. The defendant pleads guilty to aggravated assault, the lawyer said. In exchange, she agrees to provide full testimony against Preston Hartwell. 8 years, with possibility of parole in 5. 8 years for 47 seconds that had changed Laurel's life forever. It didn't feel like enough. It would never feel like enough. But Veronica's testimony would help put Preston away for much longer. I loved him, Veronica said during her allocution. Her voice was flat, defeated. I really thought he loved me. I thought we were going to have a life together. She looked at the camera, looked directly at Laurel, somehow knowing she was watching. I was just another tool, another weapon he was willing to use and throw away. Laurel felt something unexpected in that moment. Pity, not forgiveness. She would never forgive Veronica for what she had done. But pity, for a woman who had been manipulated by the same monster, who had destroyed her own life for a man who had never loved her. They were both victims of Preston Hartwell. Only one of them would spend the next 8 years in prison for it. That night, Laurel went into labor, 4 weeks early, the stress of everything catching up to her body. Garrett drove her to the hospital, breaking every speed limit. Denise, who had returned to Connecticut for the long haul, held her hand in the back seat. Breathe, Denise kept saying, just breathe. But Laurel couldn't breathe. All she could think was, what if something is wrong? What if the attack damaged her? What if the baby isn't okay? The delivery lasted 14 hours. At the end of it, exhausted and terrified, Laurel heard the most beautiful sound in the world. Her daughter crying. She's perfect, the doctor said. 6 pounds, 2 ounces. All fingers and toes accounted for. They placed the baby on Laurel's chest, small and wrinkled and screaming. Laurel looked at her daughter through her one working eye. Eleanor, she whispered. Eleanor Grace, not Hartwell. Brennan, her maiden name. Her daughter would carry no part of Preston forward. The baby stopped crying, looked up at her mother with unfocused newborn eyes, and Laurel felt for the first time since the attack, something like hope. Hello, sweet girl, she murmured. I'm your mama, and I'm going to protect you, no matter what. She held her daughter through the night, watched the sun rise through the hospital window. She had survived the attack, survived the darkness, survived the birth. Now she had to survive the trial. But looking at Eleanor's face, she knew she could do it. For her children, for herself, for every woman Preston had ever hurt. She would see this through to the end. The trial began on a gray November morning. Laurel stood at the bottom of the courthouse steps. Her right eye scanned the crowd. Reporters, cameras, curiosity seekers. Garrett held her right arm. Denise held her left. Between them, they guided her up the stairs, one step at a time. That was how she had survived the last 6 months, one step at a time. The courtroom was packed. Media filled the back rows. Former Hartwell Foundation donors sat in clusters, watching their money's legacy crumble. And there in the front row sat 3 women Laurel had never met in person. Preston's other ex-wives. Margot Sinclair Whitfield, the second wife, the one whose testimony would prove the pattern. Diana Wells Montgomery, the first wife, who had finally agreed to speak after seeing the evidence. Susan Bradley Clark, the third wife, who had broken her silence just 2 weeks ago. All of them here, all of them ready to face the man who had destroyed their lives. Preston sat at the defense table. He had lost weight. His expensive suit couldn't hide the gauntness of his face. His attorney was a public defender. Young, overwhelmed, no match for Marcus Webb. When Preston looked at Laurel, his face showed confusion. Genuine confusion. He still didn't understand how this had happened, how his money and his name and his certainty couldn't save him. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Witness after witness took the stand. Carolyn Foster, the neighbor who had called 911, who had seen Veronica standing over Laurel's body, who had watched Preston drive away without looking back. Dr. Helen Marsh, who described Laurel's injuries in clinical detail. The fractured orbital bone, the damaged corneas, the 63 stitches, the permanent loss of vision in her left eye, the detectives who had found the emails, the financial experts who had traced the offshore accounts, the insurance investigator who had flagged the suspicious policy, Veronica Tate, testifying against the man she had loved, describing how he had groomed her, manipulated her, convinced her that Laurel was the obstacle to their happiness. He told me she was abusive, Veronica said. Her voice was flat, hollow. He said she threatened to destroy him, to take everything. He said we had to protect ourselves. And you believed him? Marcus asked. I loved him. I believed everything he said. Then came the other wives. Margot went first. Calm, controlled, but her hands shook as she spoke. He made me believe I was mentally ill, she said. For 3 years of marriage, he told me I was imagining things, misremembering, overreacting. He had our therapist confirming everything he said. Why didn't you report this to the police? Because I believed him. I thought I was the problem. Her voice cracked. It took me years to understand what had really happened. By then I had signed an NDA. I couldn't speak. Diana and Susan told similar stories. Different details, same pattern, gaslighting, isolation, control. And when they tried to leave, threats and legal maneuvering to keep them silent. Preston had done this to 4 women over 15 years, and he had nearly killed the 4th. Finally, it was Laurel's turn. She took the stand, faced the crowded courtroom, faced her husband. Marcus led her through her story, the morning of the attack, the doorbell, Veronica's arrival, Preston's calm announcement that their marriage was over. What happened next? Marcus asked. Veronica attacked me. She hit me 11 times in 47 seconds. Were you able to defend yourself? I was holding our son. He was 11 months old. Laurel's voice stayed steady. If I fought back, I might drop him. If I let go to protect my face, she might hurt him instead. So I did the only thing I could do. What was that? I curled around him. I took every blow. I protected my child. The courtroom was silent. And your husband? Marcus asked. What did Preston do during the attack? Laurel turned to look at Preston directly. For the first time since the trial began. He watched. He stood at the bottom of the stairs and he watched. And when it was over, he didn't call for help. He didn't check on his son. He took his mistress's arm and walked out the door. Did he say anything? He said, "We need to leave now." Laurel paused. Those were his exact words. And what were you doing at that moment? I was lying on the floor in my own blood, holding our baby, unable to see, not knowing if our daughter was still alive inside me. She let the words hang in the air. He planned it, she said quietly. He invited her over. He wrote emails about removing me. He took out life insurance so he would profit from my death. Her voice grew stronger. My husband tried to have me killed, and he stood there and watched it happen. The defense attorney tried to cross-examine her, tried to suggest she had provoked the attack, tried to imply her memory was unreliable. Laurel answered every question calmly, clearly, without emotion. She had spent 6 months preparing for this moment. She was ready. When she stepped down from the stand, she caught Preston's eye one final time. He looked away first. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Laurel sat in the hallway with Garrett and Denise, with the other wives who had become, unexpectedly, friends. None of them spoke. There was nothing to say. Either the system would work or it wouldn't. Either Preston would face justice or he would walk away. After 4 hours, the bailiff called them back. The jury filed in. The foreman stood. On the charge of conspiracy to commit aggravated assault, how does the jury find? Guilty. On the charge of accessory to attempted murder, how does the jury find? Guilty. On the charge of insurance fraud, how does the jury find? Guilty. On the charge of witness intimidation, how does the jury find? Guilty. 4 counts, 4 guilty verdicts. The courtroom erupted, reporters shouting, cameras flashing. Laurel sat very still. She watched Preston's face as the verdicts were read. Watched the confusion turn to shock. Watched the shock turn to fear. He looked like a man who had finally understood that his money couldn't save him, that his name couldn't protect him, that he was going to prison. The judge scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later. When it came, Laurel was there, front row, her children at home with Denise, but their pictures in her heart. Preston Edward Hartwell, the judge said, you have been found guilty of crimes that demonstrate a profound contempt for human life and human dignity. Preston stood in his prison jumpsuit, no expensive suit, no family money, no army of lawyers, just a man facing consequences for the first time in his life. Your actions resulted in permanent injury to your wife. You conspired to have her harmed. You profited from her pain. And when given the chance to show remorse, you have shown only contempt for these proceedings. The judge paused. I sentence you to 22 years in federal prison. You will not be eligible for parole for 18 years. This court is adjourned. 22 years. Laurel watched as the marshals led Preston away. He looked back once. His face still showed that same confusion. He would never understand. Men like Preston never did. But he would spend the next 2 decades paying for what he had done. And that was enough. 6 months after the sentencing. The morning light filtered through the kitchen window of Laurel's new house, soft and golden. The kind of light that felt like forgiveness. She stood at the counter making coffee. The machine gurgled and hissed. Steam rose from the carafe. The smell of fresh grounds filled the small kitchen. This house was nothing like the estate. No marble floors, no crystal chandeliers, no 12-foot ceilings designed to impress. Just a modest 4-bedroom in a neighborhood where children rode bicycles on the sidewalks, where neighbors waved from their porches, where the biggest drama was whose turn it was to host the block party. Laurel had bought it with the settlement money. The civil case had been brutal. Preston's lawyers had fought every dollar, but in the end, the evidence was too overwhelming. The jury had awarded her everything she asked for: his offshore accounts, traced and frozen, his investments, liquidated, his precious real estate portfolio, sold at auction. The man who had once controlled $12 million in assets now had nothing but a prison cell and a public defender's business card. She could have bought something grander with the settlement: a penthouse in Manhattan, a beachfront property in the Hamptons. Something that would have made Preston's jaw drop. But she didn't want grand anymore. She wanted warm. This house was warm. The kitchen had yellow walls that reminded her of sunshine. The living room had a fireplace that actually worked. The backyard was small, but it had a swing set and room for a garden. It felt like a home, a real home, not a showplace designed to impress business associates, not a prison disguised as a mansion, just a home where her children could grow up safe and loved. Oliver's voice drifted in from the living room. Mama, look. Laurel poured her coffee and walked to the doorway. Her son sat on the carpet surrounded by wooden blocks. He was 2 years old now, walking confidently, running actually, getting into everything, starting to form sentences that made her heart swell with pride. What did you make, baby? Tower, he pointed at his creation, a precarious stack of blocks that leaned dangerously to one side. Tall tower. That's a very tall tower. Good job. Oliver beamed. That smile. It still caught her off guard sometimes. How pure it was. How untouched by everything that had happened. He didn't remember the attack. Dr. Marsh had assured her of that. At 11 months old, his brain hadn't been capable of forming lasting memories of trauma. He would never remember lying in his mother's arms while a stranger beat her nearly to death. Small mercies. Laurel sipped her coffee and watched him play. Her right eye tracked his movements easily now. She had learned to compensate for the blind left side, learned to turn her head, to check her shadow zone, to navigate a world that was now half darkness. It had been hard at first. She had bumped into door frames, misjudged distances, spilled more drinks than she could count. But humans were adaptable. Dr. Marsh had been right about that. She had adapted. A cry came from upstairs. Eleanor, waking from her morning nap. I'll be right back, baby, Laurel told Oliver. Don't knock down your tower. She climbed the stairs carefully. Her depth perception was still imperfect. Stairs required concentration. Eleanor's nursery was painted pale lavender. Laurel had chosen the color herself. No interior designer, no consultation with Preston about what would photograph well for his social media. Just a mother picking a color she thought her daughter would like. Eleanor stood in her crib, chubby hands gripping the rail. She was 6 months old now, healthy and strong, growing bigger every day. When she saw Laurel, her face split into a gummy smile. "Good morning, sweet girl." Laurel lifted her daughter from the crib, pressed her nose against Eleanor's soft hair, breathed in that baby smell. "Did you have good dreams?" Eleanor babbled something incomprehensible, her version of conversation. "I agree completely," Laurel said seriously. "Very insightful." She carried Eleanor downstairs, settled into the rocking chair by the window, began the morning nursing routine. Outside, a cardinal landed on the bird feeder Garrett had installed last week. Red against the green leaves, bright and alive. Laurel watched it with her working eye. She had started noticing things like this, small beauties she had overlooked before. The way morning light caught dust motes, the sound of Oliver's laughter, the weight of Eleanor in her arms. When you lost something as fundamental as half your vision, you learn to appreciate what remained. The doorbell rang. "Coming," Laurel called. She shifted Eleanor to one arm and went to answer it. Denise stood on the porch. She wore yoga pants and an oversized sweater. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked nothing like the polished professional Laurel had known in Seattle. She looked happy. "Good morning, sunshine." Denise stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "Ready for tonight?" "As ready as I'll ever be." Tonight was the Domestic Violence Survivors Conference, a gathering of 300 women from across the state, advocates, survivors, people who worked in shelters and crisis centers, and Laurel had been asked to give the keynote speech. The invitation had come 2 months ago. A woman named Patricia Daniels, director of the Connecticut Coalition Against Domestic Violence. "Your story has inspired so many people." Patricia had said over the phone, "The way you fought back, the way you used your voice. We would be honored if you would share your experience with our community." Laurel had said yes before she could talk herself out of it. Now, standing in her kitchen, with the speech notes still unfinished, she wondered if she had made a mistake. "You're going to be amazing," Denise said, reading her face. "You've practiced that speech 100 times. Practicing in my bathroom mirrors is different from standing in front of 300 strangers. They're not strangers, they're survivors, just like you." Denise took Eleanor from Laurel's arms. "Now go get ready. I'll watch the monsters." "Oliver's in the living room." "I know. I can hear this tower crashing from here." Right on cue, the sound of wooden blocks clattering against hardwood floor echoed through the house, followed by Oliver's delighted laugh. "Uh-oh," he shouted. "Fall down." Laurel smiled despite her nerves. He's been doing that all morning, building and destroying, building and destroying. "Sounds like therapy," Denise observed. "Healthy processing of destructive urges." "He's too." "Early start," Laurel laughed. A real laugh. Those came easier now. She went upstairs to shower and dress, stood under the hot water and let it wash over her. The scars on her face had faded to thin white lines, barely visible unless you knew where to look. Dr. Marsh said they would continue to fade over time, but they would never disappear completely. Laurel had made peace with that. The scars were part of her story now, evidence of survival, proof that she had endured the worst and come through. She dressed carefully, a navy blue dress, simple but elegant, professional but approachable. No designer labels, no $1,000 shoes, just clothes that made her feel confident and comfortable. She did her makeup in the bathroom mirror, one eye in the glass, one eye in shadow. This was her face now, asymmetrical, imperfect, real. She had spent years trying to be perfect for Preston. Perfect wife, perfect hostess, perfect mother. She had never been enough. Now she understood the truth. She had never been meant to be enough. Preston needed her to feel inadequate. It was how he controlled her, kept her striving for an approval that would never come. No more. She was done seeking approval from men who would never give it, done shrinking herself to fit someone else's expectations. She was Laurel Brennan now, scarred and strong, broken and rebuilt. And tonight, she would share that journey with 300 women who needed to hear it. The conference was held at the Hartford Grand Hotel, A massive ballroom filled with round tables draped in white cloth. Laurel stood backstage, her heart hammering against her ribs. Through a gap in the curtains, she could see the crowd. Women of all ages, all backgrounds, some in professional attire, some in casual clothes, some with visible injuries, most with invisible ones. 300 survivors, 300 stories like hers. Marcus Webb appeared beside her. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified." "Good," he smiled. "That means you care." "Then what if I freeze? What if I forget everything I plan to say?" "Then you'll speak from the heart. That's what they want to hear anyway." Laurel took a deep breath, then another. "Thank you," she said, "for everything. I couldn't have done this without you. You did all the hard work. I just provided legal support. You gave me hope when I had none. You showed me that justice was possible." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "I've spent 30 years in courtrooms," he finally said. "I've seen a lot of victims, a lot of survivors, but I've never seen anyone fight the way you did. You inspired me, Laurel, not the other way around." Before she could respond, a woman in a headset approached. "Ms. Brennan, you're on in 2 minutes." Laurel nodded, smoothed her dress, checked her notes one final time. The introduction began, a woman at the podium listing Laurel's credentials, her experience, what she had endured and overcome. Hearing it summarized like that felt strange, clinical, like it had happened to someone else, but it had happened to her, every second of it. Please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Laurel Brennan. The applause was overwhelming. Laurel walked onto the stage. The lights were bright, blinding almost. She couldn't see individual faces, just shapes, movement. The impression of hundreds of people watching her. She reached the podium, adjusted the microphone. The applause faded. Silence, 300 women waiting to hear her story. Laurel took a breath. "People ask me what I lost," she began. Her voice was steady, stronger than she expected. "And the list is long." She paused, let the silence build. Wool vision in one eye. A marriage I thought was real. A family I thought I understood. A life I thought I was living. Murmurs from the audience. Recognition rippling through the crowd. "But here's what they don't ask." She leaned into the microphone. "What did I gain? Because that list is longer." She told them about her marriage, the early warning signs she had ignored, the way Preston had isolated her from friends and family, the slow erosion of her confidence, her independence, her sense of self. "He never hit me, not before that day, and I used that fact to convince myself I wasn't being abused. He didn't hit me, so how bad could it be?" She shook her head slowly. "I know now that abuse isn't just physical. The way he talked to me, the way he questioned my memory, the way he made me feel crazy for noticing things that were real. That was abuse too. I just didn't have the language for it." She told them about the attack, not the graphic details. They knew those from the news coverage. She told them about the moment before. "Veronica was standing in my foyer. My husband was at the top of the stairs, and something inside me shifted. I knew in that moment that everything I believed about my marriage was a lie." She told them about the 47 seconds. "I was holding my son, 11 months old. If I fought back, I might drop him. If I let go to protect myself, she might hurt him. So I made a choice. I curled around my baby. I took every blow." Her voice wavered slightly. She paused, collected herself. "That was the hardest thing I've ever done. And the most important. My son wasn't hurt. My daughter survived. I survived." She told them about the aftermath. "I had a moment, 3 a.m, sitting in my brother's backyard, 8 months pregnant, half blind, completely alone, and I thought about giving up. Complete silence in the ballroom. I thought about taking his money, signing away my voice, disappearing somewhere quiet and letting him win." She looked out at the blurred faces, but then my son cried, and I went to him, and I realized something that changed everything. She straightened her spine. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for my children, for the women he had hurt before me, for the women he might hurt after. Giving up wasn't just about me, it was about all of them. She told them about the trial, the other wives who had come forward, the evidence that proved the pattern. 4 marriages, 4 women gaslit and manipulated and discarded. I was just the first one he tried to kill. She told them about the verdict, the sentencing. 22 years. I watched them lead him away in handcuffs, and I felt something I hadn't expected. Not triumph, not even relief. I felt tired, bone-deep exhaustion from fighting so hard for so long. She paused. But underneath the exhaustion, something else. Peace, finally peace. She'd reached the part of her speech she had practiced most, the part that mattered most. I learned something in that courtroom, something I want all of you to hear. She looked directly at the crowd. Even though she couldn't see their faces clearly, she wanted them to feel her looking. Strength isn't about not falling. It's about what you do when you're on the ground. She thought of herself, curled around Oliver, blood running into her eyes. I didn't fight back that day. I took every hit, and for a long time I wondered if that made me weak, if I should have defended myself more aggressively. She shook her head. But I know now that what I did was its own kind of strength. Protecting my child, absorbing the blows, surviving. That was the strongest thing I've ever done. She took a deep breath. The prison door was open the whole time. I was my own warden, thinking I could love him into being better, thinking I could be good enough to earn his kindness, thinking I was the problem. Her voice grew stronger. I wasn't the problem. I was never the problem. He was the problem, and I was the prisoner who finally realized there was no lock on the door. She looked at the crowd one final time. Some of you are in the dark right now. Some of you can't see your way forward. Some of you are wondering if you deserve better, if escape is possible, if you have the strength to survive. She smiled, a real smile. I promise you, you deserve so much better. Escape is possible, and you have more strength than you know. She paused. Sometimes you have to lose your sight to finally see clearly. The applause was thunderous. 300 women on their feet, clapping, crying, reaching toward her with their hands raised. Laurel stood at the podium and let it wash over her. She had done it, shared her story, opened her wounds for strangers to see. And in doing so, she had found something unexpected. Healing. Not complete healing. That would take years more, maybe a lifetime. But a step forward, a piece of herself reclaimed. She stepped down from the stage. Denise was waiting in the wings, tears streaming down her face. That was incredible, Denise whispered. I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could, but I'm glad you didn't have to. They hugged, 2 women who had been friends for 15 years, through college, through careers, through marriages, good and bad. Some bonds couldn't be broken. The reception afterward was overwhelming. Woman after woman approaching Laurel, sharing their own stories, thanking her for her bravery. A woman named Jennifer, married to an abuser for 18 years, finally found the courage to leave last month. A woman named Sandra, her daughter was in a violent relationship. She didn't know how to help. A woman named Michelle, a survivor of childhood abuse, still struggling with the trauma decades later. Laurel listened to each of them, held their hands, offered what comfort she could. You're not alone, she told them. You're never alone. She didn't have all the answers. She was still figuring things out herself, but she could offer something valuable, understanding, compassion, proof that survival was possible. Near the end of the reception, an older woman approached, small, tired-looking, familiar somehow. Mrs. Brennan, her voice was hesitant. My name is Gloria Tate. Laurel's breath caught. Gloria Tate, Veronica's mother. I know I shouldn't be here, Gloria said quickly. I'll leave if you want, but my daughter asked me to give you something. She's been watching the news coverage of your recovery. She wanted you to have this. Gloria held out an envelope. Her hands were shaking. Laurel took it slowly. The envelope was thin, just a single page inside, probably. She's in therapy now, Gloria continued. Real therapy, not the kind Preston paid for. She's starting to understand what she did, what she really did. Laurel looked at the envelope as chairman's, such a small thing to contain so much weight. How is she? The words surprised her. She hadn't meant to ask about Veronica's well-being. She's struggling. The other inmates know what she did. Attacking a pregnant woman holding a baby. Gloria's voice broke. She gets no sympathy in there. But she says she deserves it. She says she deserves worse. Laurel thought about Veronica, the woman who had destroyed her vision, who had nearly killed Isher. She couldn't forgive her. She would never forgive her. But she could acknowledge a complicated truth. Veronica had been a weapon. But Preston had been the one who aimed her. "Thank you for bringing this," Laurel said quietly. "I'll read it later." Gloria nodded, wiped her eyes, turned to leave. "Mrs. Tate?" Gloria stopped. "Your daughter made her own choices. She's responsible for what she did. But she was also manipulated by a very dangerous man." Laurel paused. "I hope the therapy helps her. For her sake, and for yours." Gloria stared at her for a long moment. Then she nodded once and walked away. Laurel slipped the envelope into her purse. She would read it later, in private, when she had the strength to face whatever was inside. The drive home was quiet. Denise dozed in the passenger seat. The highway stretched dark ahead. Laurel drove carefully. Her night vision was compromised. She avoided highways after sunset when possible. But tonight had been worth the exception. She pulled into her driveway at 10:30. The house was dark except for a lamp in the living room window. Garrett had stayed with the children. She found him on the couch, asleep with the television muted. Oliver's baby monitor beside him. Eleanor's too. Laurel didn't wake him. She climbed the stairs quietly, checked on her children. Oliver sprawled across his toddler bed. Stuffed animals surrounded him like an army, his face peaceful in sleep. Eleanor curled in her crib, one hand clutching her favorite blanket, her breathing slow and steady. Both safe, both loved, both unaware of the horrors their mother had endured. Laurel stood in the doorway and watched them sleep. This was why she had fought, why she had testified, why she had stood on that stage tonight and ripped open her wounds for strangers. For them, for a future where they would never know their father's cruelty firsthand. She went to her own room, sat on the edge of the bed, pulled out the envelope from her purse. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she opened it. The letter was handwritten, shaky cursive on lined paper, full of cross-outs and corrections. "Mrs. Brennan, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I know that. I'm writing because my therapist says I need to acknowledge the truth to heal. And the truth is this. I knew what I was doing. I wasn't controlled. I wasn't manipulated into violence. I chose it. I chose to hurt you. I chose to keep hitting even when you stopped fighting back. Preston made me feel special. He told me I was the love of his life. He told me you were abusive and unstable. He told me we would be together forever once you were out of the picture. But that's not an excuse. I know that now. Plenty of people are lied to. Plenty of people are lonely and desperate. They don't beat pregnant women holding babies. I remember your face during the attack, the way you curled around your son, the way you didn't fight back, the way you just tried to protect him. I think about that every day, every single day. I think about your son screaming, covered in your blood. I think about the baby inside you, how I could have killed her too. I don't sleep much anymore. When I do, I have nightmares. I see your face, your eyes, the blood. I know this letter probably doesn't help you. It's probably the last thing you want. Another reminder of what happened. But I wanted you to know, I'm not the same person I was that day. I'm trying to understand how I became capable of such violence. I'm trying to make sure I never hurt anyone again. I'll be in prison for at least 5 more years, maybe longer if they don't grant parole. I accept that. I deserve that. But when I get out, I want to do something meaningful. Help other women recognize the signs of manipulation. Warn them about men like Preston. Maybe prevent what happened to you from happening to someone else. It won't make up for what I did. Nothing will. But it's all I have. I'm sorry. I know those words are worthless, but I'm sorry for all of it. Veronica Tate Laurel read the letter twice. Then she folded it carefully and placed it in her nightstand drawer. She didn't feel forgiveness. She would never forgive Veronica, but she felt something unexpected. Relief. Someone had finally taken responsibility. Acknowledged the truth without excuses or justifications. It wasn't justice. Justice was Preston in prison, Veronica serving her sentence. But it was something, a closing of a door that had been open too long. Laurel changed into her pajamas, washed her face, looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. One eye looked back, the other was shadow. But she could see clearly now. She climbed into bed, closed her working eye, let the darkness take her, and for the first time in months, she slept without nightmares. 1 year after the attack. The morning of Eleanor's first birthday dawned bright and warm, May sunshine streaming through the windows, birds singing in the trees outside. Laurel woke slowly, let herself drift in that space between sleep and consciousness. No nightmares last night. That was still remarkable enough to notice. For months after the attack, she had woken screaming at least once a week. Preston's face, Veronica's fists, the marble floor rushing up to meet her. Now the nightmares came less frequently. Once a month, maybe? Sometimes less. Progress. She got out of bed, went through her morning routine. Shower, dress, makeup. The scars on her face had faded to thin white lines. Dr. Marsh said they would continue to fade over time. Eventually they might be nearly invisible. But Laurel had stopped hoping for invisibility. The scars were part of her now, part of her story. She had earned them. She went downstairs to start the birthday preparations. The kitchen was already chaos. Garrett stood at the counter, attempting to frost a cake. Pink frosting covered his hands, his shirt, and somehow his forehead. "Don't ask," he said when he saw her face. "I wasn't going to." The recipe said room temperature frosting. Nobody told me room temperature in this house is apparently the surface of the sun. Laurel laughed, took a spatula from the drawer. "Let me help." They worked together in comfortable silence. Brother and sister, rebuilding what Preston had tried to destroy. Garrett had been her rock through all of it, taking her and Oliver into his home, driving her to doctor's appointments and court dates, holding her when the nightmares came. She could never repay him, but she could make sure he knew how much it meant. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what? Making a mess of Eleanor's cake?" "For everything, for being here, for not giving up on me even when I gave up on myself." Garrett stopped spreading frosting, looked at his sister with serious eyes. "You never gave up. You wanted to, I know, but you didn't." "I thought about it so many times. Thinking about it isn't the same as doing it." He returned to the cake. "You're the strongest person I know, Laurel. You always have been." "I didn't feel strong, I felt broken. Sometimes strength looks like breaking, and then putting yourself back together anyway." Laurel considered this, the philosophy of a man who built houses for living, who understood that foundations sometimes cracked, that structures could be repaired, that broken things could become whole again. "The cake looks terrible," she observed. "I know, but Eleanor's one, she won't remember." "I'll remember. I'll show her the pictures when she's older. Tell her Uncle Garrett tried his best." "You're a cruel woman." "I learned it from the best." They smiled at each other, brother and sister, survivors. The doorbell rang at noon. Denise arrived first, carrying bags full of decorations, pink streamers, pink balloons, a banner that said, "Happy Birthday" in glittery letters. "I may have gone overboard," she admitted. "You think?" "She's 1 year old. She deserves overboard." Marcus Webb arrived at 1. He had become more than a lawyer over the past year, more like family. "I brought a gift," he said, holding up a wrapped package. "Nothing fancy, just something I thought she might like." "You didn't have to bring anything." "I wanted to." He smiled. "I don't have grandchildren of my own. Let me spoil yours." The other guests trickled in throughout the afternoon. Margot Sinclair Whitfield, Preston's second ex-wife, now one of Laurel's closest friends. Diana Wells Montgomery, the first wife, finally emerging from decades of silence. Susan Bradley Clark, the third wife, still healing but getting stronger every day. 3 women who should have been strangers, united by shared trauma, bound together by the determination to ensure Preston never hurt anyone again. They gathered in Laurel's backyard, children running on the grass, adults laughing and talking. A year ago, Laurel had been fighting for her life on a marble floor. Today, she was hosting a birthday party for her daughter. The transformation still felt surreal sometimes. Oliver chased Bubbles across the yard. 2 years old and fearless. His laughter rang out like bells. Eleanor sat in her high chair, watching everything with wide eyes. 1 year old today, a milestone that had once seemed impossible. Laurel remembered lying in that hospital bed, bandages over her eyes, not knowing if she would see her daughter's face clearly. She could see Eleanor now. Not perfectly. Her left eye would never work again, but her right eye captured every detail. The curve of Eleanor's cheek, the wisp of blonde hair, the way her nose scrunched when she laughed. Beautiful. Her daughter was beautiful. "Time for cake," Denise announced. They gathered around the table. Garrett brought out his disaster of a creation, pink frosting sliding off the sides. One candle stuck crookedly in the center. It was perfect. "Happy birthday to you," they sang together. "Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Eleanor. Happy birthday to you." Laurel helped Eleanor blow out the candle, made a wish on her daughter's behalf. "May you always be safe. May you always be loved. May you always know your worth." Eleanor grabbed a fistful of cake and shoved it in her mouth, pink frosting everywhere, in her hair, on her dress, up her nose somehow. Everyone laughed. Cameras clicked, a moment of pure, uncomplicated joy. Laurel held on to it, stored it in her memory. These were the moments that mattered, the ones she had almost lost. After cake, after presents, after Oliver fell asleep on the grass and had to be carried inside, the adults gathered on the back porch. The sun was setting, golden light painting everything soft and warm. Denise poured wine. Margot arranged cheese on a plate. Susan and Diana talked quietly about their latest therapy sessions. Marcus sat beside Laurel on the porch swing. "I testified at his parole hearing yesterday," he said quietly. "Thought you should know." Laurel had known the hearing was coming. Preston's first chance at early release, reduced from the original 18-year minimum due to some legal technicality. What happened? Denied unanimously. Relief washed through her. She hadn't realized how much tension she had been carrying. The board said he showed no genuine remorse, still claiming innocence, still insisting he was the victim of a conspiracy. Marcus shook his head. "Men like Preston never change. They just get older." "How long until the next hearing?" 3 years, and we'll be there again. All of us, making sure he stays exactly where he belongs." Laurel nodded. The vigilance would never end. Not completely, but that was okay. Some battles were worth fighting forever. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unfamiliar number. "Congratulations on Eleanor's birthday. I saw the photos on your foundation's website. She's beautiful. I hope she grows up knowing how strong her mother is." No signature, but Laurel knew who it was from. Veronica. She had been paroled 3 months ago. Good behavior, completed therapy, demonstrated genuine rehabilitation. Laurel had received a letter first, then occasional messages. Nothing demanding, nothing invasive. Just a woman trying to make amends in the only way she could. Laurel hadn't responded. She wasn't ready for that. Might never be ready. But she hadn't blocked the number either. Progress came in strange forms sometimes. She put the phone away, returned her attention to the moment. Denise was telling a story about her latest dating disaster. Margot was laughing so hard she was crying. Susan and Diana had joined in, comparing notes on their own post-divorce experiences. Women healing together, supporting each other, building new lives from the wreckage of old ones. This was what survival looked like, not just enduring, thriving. "I have news," Laurel said when the laughter faded. Everyone turned to look at her. "The book comes out next month." Cheers erupted, hugs exchanged, more wine poured. The book, her memoir, 47 Seconds. She had spent 6 months writing it, reliving every painful moment, putting her truth on paper for the world to see. The publisher had paid her more money than she had expected, said her story would help countless women recognize the signs of abuse, would give them hope that escape was possible. Laurel didn't care about the money. She had enough money. She cared about the message. "I want all of you to be at the launch event," she said. "All of you. You're part of this story too." Margot took her hand. "We wouldn't miss it." Diana nodded. Susan wiped her eyes. They had all contributed to the book, shared their own experiences, given Laurel permission to include their stories alongside hers. A collective testimony against one man's decades of abuse. Preston would hate it, would rage about it from his prison cell, would probably try to sue for defamation. Let him try. The truth was the ultimate defense. Night fell slowly. The guests departed one by one, hugs and promises to call soon. The easy intimacy of people who had become family through circumstances none of them would have chosen. By 10 o'clock, only Garrett and Denise remained. They helped Laurel clean up, wash dishes, store leftover cake. "I should head out," Denise said eventually. "Early meeting tomorrow. Thank you for everything today. Thank me by naming your next kid after me." "I'm not having any more kids." "A dog, then. Denise is a great name for a dog." Laurel laughed, hugged her friend tight. "I love you, you know." "I know. I love you too." Denise pulled back, looked at her with serious eyes. "I'm proud of you, Laurel. So proud of who you've become. I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to." Denise left. Garrett finished the dishes and headed to the guest room he still occupied. Said he'd move out once Laurel was ready to be alone. She was getting ready, slowly, but not quite yet. Laurel climbed the stairs, checked on her children. Oliver sprawled across his toddler bed, arms and legs everywhere, stuffed animals forming a protective ring around him. He was dreaming. She could see his eyes moving beneath closed lids. Hoped the dreams were good ones. Eleanor curled in her crib, one hand clutching her favorite blanket, the other wrapped around a new stuffed elephant from Uncle Garrett. 1 year old, a whole year since her birth, since those terrifying hours of early labor, since the moment Laurel first held her daughter and promised to protect her forever. She had kept that promise, would keep it for the rest of her life. She stood in the doorway, watching her children sleep. A year ago, she had been lying on a marble floor, blood in her eyes, pain everywhere, wondering if she would live to see another sunrise. She had lived, more than lived. She had fought, testified, won. Preston was in prison. His money was gone. His reputation was destroyed. His family had abandoned him. He had lost everything, and she had gained everything. 2 beautiful children, a home filled with love, friends who had become family, a voice that was helping other women find their own strength. It wasn't the life she had imagined, not the future she had planned. It was better. Laurel went to her bedroom, stood by the window. The moon was full. Its light silvered the backyard. The swing set cast long shadows on the grass. A year ago, she couldn't see the moon at all. Couldn't see anything. Just darkness and fear. Now she could see. Not perfectly. Half her vision was gone forever. But she could see what mattered. Her children. Her home. Her future. She could see the woman she had become. The strength she had discovered. The resilience she had built. She could see clearly now. The road ahead was still uncertain. There would be hard days, nightmares that returned, moments when the trauma felt fresh again. But there would also be good days, birthday parties, first steps, bedtime stories, morning coffee and evening sunsets. There would be laughter, love, connection. There would be life. And that was enough. That was everything. Laurel turned from the window, got ready for bed, crawled under the covers. She closed her working eye, let the darkness come. But it wasn't scary anymore. Not like before. This darkness was just rest, just peace, just the space between one day and the next. Tomorrow there would be more healing, more growth, more becoming. Tomorrow there would be sunshine. She fell asleep smiling. Well, 3 months later, the book launch was held at a bookstore in downtown Hartford. 50 chairs arranged in neat rows, a podium at the front, a table stacked with copies of 47 Seconds. Laurel stood backstage, holding her author copy. The cover showed a woman's silhouette against the sunrise. Strong, resolute, rising. Inside those pages was everything. Every painful memory, every moment of despair, every step of the long journey back. She had poured herself into these words, hoped they would matter. The bookstore owner appeared, a kind woman named Margaret who had insisted on hosting the event. "Full house," Margaret said. "Standing room only. We're turning people away at the door to." Laurel's heart raced. That many? Your story resonated. People want to hear it from you. She thought about all the interviews she had done, the podcast appearances, The news segments. Her story had spread further than she ever imagined. Women reaching out from across the country, thanking her for speaking the truth, telling her their own stories. She wasn't alone. She had never been alone. "Ready?" Margaret asked. Laurel took a breath, straightened her spine. "Ready." She walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. The crowd was larger than she expected. Men and women, young and old, some holding copies of her book, some holding tissues. She saw Denise in the front row, crying already. She saw Garrett beside her, pride written across his face. She saw Margot, Diana, Susan, the sisterhood of survivors. She saw Marcus, the man who had given her hope when she had none. And in the very back, standing against the wall, she saw someone unexpected. Patricia Hartwell, Preston's mother, wearing simple clothes, no pearls, no designer labels. Their eyes met. Patricia nodded once, an acknowledgement, an acceptance. She had come to hear the truth about her son, all of it, publicly. Laurel nodded back. Then she stepped up to the podium. "Thank you for being here," she began. "Thank you for caring about this story, for wanting to hear it, for believing that stories like mine matter." She paused, looked out at the crowd. "This book is dedicated to every woman who has ever been told she was crazy for seeing what was right in front of her, to every woman who has ever been isolated from the people who loved her, to every woman who has ever wondered if she deserved better." Her voice grew stronger. "You do deserve better. You deserve safety. You deserve respect. You deserve love that doesn't leave bruises." She held up the book. "This is my story, but it's also your story, or our story, the story of women who survive, who fight back, who refuse to be silenced." She began to read from chapter 1. The morning of the attack, the doorbell, Veronica's arrival, the room was completely silent. She read about the 47 seconds, about curling around Oliver, about Preston watching from the stairs. Someone in the audience sobbed quietly. She read about the hospital, the darkness, the fear, more tears, more recognition. She read about the trial, the verdict, the justice that had seemed impossible. Applause interrupted her, spontaneous and fierce. She read the final chapter, the one she had written just last month. "I don't have full vision anymore. Half my world is shadow, but I can see clearly now. I can see that strength isn't about not falling. It's about getting back up. I can see that survival isn't just enduring. It's choosing life again and again, even when it's hard. I can see that I am more than what happened to me, more than a victim, more than a statistic, more than a story on the evening news. I am a mother, a sister, a friend, a survivor. I am Laurel Brennan, and my story isn't over. It's just beginning." She closed the book. The applause was thunderous. Standing ovation. 300 people on their feet. Laurel stood at the podium and let it wash over her. She had done it, shared her truth with the world, turned her pain into something that could help others. This was her purpose now, the reason she had survived. To speak for those who couldn't speak yet, to show them the way out, to prove that even in the darkest darkness, light was possible. After the reading, she signed books for 2 hours. Woman after woman approached the table, shared their own stories, asked for advice, thanked her for her courage. Laurel listened to each one, held their hands, offered what comfort she could. "You're not alone," she told them. "You're never alone." At the end of the night, after the crowd dispersed, Patricia Hartwell approached. They stood face to face, victim and mother of perpetrator. "I read the book," Patricia said quietly. "All of it. And I'm sorry for everything, for not seeing who my son really was, for protecting him when I should have stopped him, for all the women he hurt because I looked the other way." Her voice cracked. "I can't undo what he did, what I enabled, but I can try to do better. The Hartwell Foundation is being restructured. All of its funding is being redirected to domestic violence programs. I've also established a scholarship in your name for survivors pursuing education." Laurel stared at her. "Why?" "Because it's the only way I can live with myself, the only way I can face the mirror." Patricia's eyes were wet. I lost my son, not to prison. I lost him long before that. I lost him because I let him become a monster. She reached into her purse, pulled out an envelope. This is the documentation, the foundation, the scholarship. Everything is legitimate. Everything is real. Laurel took the envelope slowly. I don't know if I can ever forgive him, Patricia said, but I can try to make amends. For him, for myself, for all the women he hurt. She turned to leave. Mrs. Hartwell? Patricia stopped. Thank you for coming tonight, for hearing the truth. Patricia nodded, then she walked away. Laurel watched her go, a woman trying to atone for her son's sins. She didn't know if it was enough, didn't know if anything could ever be enough. But it was something, a step toward healing for all of them. Denise appeared beside her, ready to go home. Laurel looked at the empty bookstore, the podium, the table where she had signed 300 copies of her story. Yeah, she said, I'm ready. They walked outside together. The night air was warm, stars scattered across the sky. Laurel looked up at them with her working eye. A year and a half ago, she had been fighting for her life on a marble floor. Now she was an author, an advocate, a voice for the voiceless. She had lost so much, but she had gained more, and the journey was just beginning. She got in Denise's car, leaned back against the seat. Where to? Denise asked. Home, my kids are waiting. They drove through the quiet streets, past houses with lit windows, past families living their lives. Laurel thought about all of them, the hidden struggles, the secret ending, the women trapped in situations like hers. She couldn't save them all, but she could show them the way. One book, one speech, one story at a time. They pulled into her driveway. The porch light was on, Garrett's silhouette in the window. Home? Laurel got out of the car, walked up the path. The door opened before she reached it. Mama, Oliver shouted. Mama's home. He ran to her, arms outstretched, face bright with joy. She caught him, swung him up, held him tight. Hey, baby, did you miss me? Miss you lots, Eleanor cried. She did? Lots and lots, but I sang to her. You sang to your sister? What did you sing? Twinkle Star. She liked it. Laurel's heart swelled. Her son, comforting his baby sister, already learning to protect the people he loved. She carried him inside, found Eleanor in Garrett's arms, freshly bathed and ready for bed. She was great, Garrett said. Went down easy for once. Laurel took her daughter, held both children in her arms, Oliver on one hip, Eleanor on the other, her whole world in her embrace. She thought about everything that had led to this moment, the pain, the fear, the long road to recovery. Worth it. All of it worth it. For this, for them. Let's get you two to bed, she said softly. She carried them upstairs, tucked Oliver in first, stuffed animals arranged just so, nightlight glowing softly. Mama? Yes, baby? I love you. 3 words, simple and pure. I love you too, baby, more than anything in the world. She kissed his forehead, turned off the main light. Then Eleanor, into the crib, blanket tucked around her, mobile spinning slowly overhead. Good night, sweet girl. Mama loves you. Eleanor was already asleep, peaceful and content. Laurel stood in the doorway between both rooms, watching her children rest, safe, loved, free. This was what she had fought for, what she had nearly died for. This moment, this life, this future, she had won. Not just the trial, not just the settlement. She had won back her life, her children, herself, and no one would ever take that away again. She went to her own room, changed into pajamas, washed her face, looked at herself in the mirror one final time, one eye looking back, one eyeshadow, scars that would never fully fade. A woman who had been broken and rebuilt, stronger now, wiser, more herself than she had ever been. She climbed into bed, pulled the covers up, closed her eyes. The darkness came, but it was a friend now, a place of rest. She fell asleep quickly, deeply. No nightmares tonight, no monsters in the shadows, just peace, just hope, just the quiet knowledge that tomorrow would bring more light, and the light would be enough. The light would be everything. Thank you for staying until the end. Laurel's story is one of survival, of strength, of a woman who refused to be silenced. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something real, I have a small request. Hit that like button. It takes 1 second, but it helps more than you know. Leave a comment. Tell me what moment hit you the hardest. I read every single one. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. A friend, a sister, someone who might be fighting their own battle in silence. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. Turn on notifications, because stories like this one, they're not just entertainment. They're reminders that no matter how dark it gets, the light is possible. You are stronger than you know. See you in the next story.